Welcome to episode 11 of the Motorcar Marketing Podcast. I'm Ashley Myers with motorcarmarketing.com. In this episode's main segment, I'm going to be interviewing Ralph Paglia. Ralph has worked in the automotive industry for more than 30 years. He was doing online marketing in the mid-1980s with the old BBS systems. He's a true thought leader in the industry and offers up some great information on the future of automotive marketing. So stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help us out by giving us a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so it's very much appreciated. If you have any questions or comments about anything, feel free to send us an email at info@motorcarmarketing.com. We want to improve this podcast as much as possible, so some honest, constructive feedback is very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any website or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on the website in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.motorcarmarketing.com/podcasts. We've just completed putting together our Quick Start Auto Dealer Marketing Guide. You get it for free by going to motorcarmarketing.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and the lessons will be emailed to you over the course of the next few days. We've tried to concentrate on the high leverage things you can do with each marketing channel so you can get the maximum results in the shortest amount of time. We'll be adding more lessons to this guide in the future, but to start out, we'll show you how to increase your ROI and sell more cars on Craigslist, how to quickly get a campaign up on Google pay-per-click, how to begin generating leads from local search engine optimization, and how to effectively use email marketing to generate leads and correspond with your past customers. Again, this guide is completely free. Just go to motorcarmarketing.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm talking with automotive marketing expert Ralph Paglia. Just a quick note before we begin. If you're not already a member, I highly recommend that you join the forum that Ralph runs, Automotive Digital Marketing. I'll link to it in the show notes, and we talk a bit more about it in the interview. When you join, you'll start getting emails from Ralph highlighting various articles on automotive marketing. This is a great resource because Ralph is vetting these articles, and you'll know you're only seeing the good ones. This is a great service as you don't have to wade through the tidal wave of daily content that's being spewed out on automotive marketing. Anyway, here is the interview. Welcome, Ralph, to the Motorcar Marketing Podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
So to start out, I wonder if you can give us a quick overview of your career and how you got into auto dealer marketing.
Well, like a lot of people, I was fresh out of school, and in my case, was fresh out of college, and I got my MBA degree, had some great job offers in the securities and financial services industry. And I went out to San Diego, California for a wedding. First of all, San Diego was beautiful. I'd never been there. I met a beautiful young girl, and I decided that I didn't want to take a job in New York or Chicago. I wanted to go to San Diego. So I drove out to San Diego with no job, just 23 years old and ready to go. And when I got there, I ran out of money very quickly, and I met a guy at the beach that some friends I was hanging out with, whose father owned 13 car dealerships. And he said, well, while you're figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life, why don't you sell cars? And you can make money, and the hours are pretty good. And everything he told me, believe it or not, actually turned out to be true. I went and got a job at at one of his dad's dealerships, and it was my initial impression was that it was really a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. It was a Volkswagen and Peugeot store, so it wasn't exactly something that was overly easy to sell or demand exceed supply or anything like that. But I found that with customers, one of the old guys there had told me something. This would have been 1981. And he told me, he said, Ralph, if you just listen to the customer, most of them will tell you how to sell them a car, and then just do it. Whatever they tell you to do. And most of the time you end up selling a car. I don't know about the most of the time, but I did. I took his advice. I remember the first car I sold. I sold the first person I sold. And the hardest part for me was what forms to fill out. What was the paperwork process of the whole thing? So and then when I selling cars back then, you were on commission, and the percentages were pretty good. And there was no Edmunds.com. There was no internet at the time, so the gross profits were pretty good. And I was amazed at how much money I was making selling cars. In fact, I sold cars for about 3 months. And then I had an offer come to me, one of the people I interviewed with when I was in graduate school in New York. And I looked at what I was making, and the challenge was I wanted to take the job, but it would have been about a 50% cut in pay to leave the car business. So here I am, 33 years later. I'm still in the car business, and I still can't afford to leave. Not that I would, because I love it. But I did the typical, I sold cars, and then I became a closer, and then I became a sales manager, then a GSM, then a general manager. The dealer, at one point, he made me a dealer of record. He gave me a store out in the desert. So I got to experience sort of what it's like to be a dealer principal. And from there, I really enjoyed going to his dealerships and implementing processes and systems. One of the guys that was also a general manager at one of the other stores, who some people might know, Danny Al-Kazmi, in the mid-'90s, Danny called me up. He said, Ralph, we have this training gig with Auto Vital, and you were doing internet stuff before anybody knew there was an internet. Would you like to come on board with us? And so I started working with his company, and that led to my working for Cybercar in 1999. We focused on Ford dealerships and Honda dealerships and Mercedes dealerships, installed a lot of internet departments, did a contract with Ford where we did BDCs. Cybercar was purchased by the Reynolds and Reynolds company. We became Reynolds Consulting Services, which is still around, and we did. I worked on that team. I was the practice leader for Reynolds Consulting Services. Worked with a lot of the car companies, developing various programs, whether it be Toyota, Ford, Honda, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Infiniti. My own personal direct experience was primarily with Ford and Honda and Toyota, and then Mercedes. I helped launch the Mercedes Star Leads program. Really enjoyed that. And at a point in time, some of my colleagues had left Reynolds to work for a company called BZ Results. BZ Results was sold to ADP. As a result, they wanted to bring me on board. I had a 1-year non-compete agreement with Reynolds, so I went and managed the online marketing and BDC and CRM and internet departments for a dealership in Phoenix called Courtesy Chevrolet, where I had a blast, probably one of the best moves I ever did in my career. We became the #1 GM dealer in the world. We were selling 1,000 cars a month, about 500 coming from online activities. When at the end of my 1 year at Courtesy, when ADP was saying, okay, it's time for you to come on, I kept going, one more month. So I stretched it out to 20 months. And then I went, did what I was supposed to do, went to work for ADP. And there, the challenge was they had just formed the digital marketing group within ADP. They had bought 4 companies, plus they had their internal teams. And my job was to bring everything together, the products, the teams, and all. And it sounded simple on paper. I definitely picked up a few miles on that deal. But I loved working for ADP. We launched the ADP social. First, I launched ADP Digital Advertising. Then we launched the OEM consulting team, and then we launched the social media marketing group within ADP. And then after losing a couple of deals to the Cobalt Group, myself and Michael Saylor, the vice president of OEM, I remember we stormed in and we said, God darn it, let's buy those sons of guns, And of course, that took a while, but we got that done. So after the acquisition with the Cobalt Group, I decided to take the ADP is a great company to work for. Whenever they have these types of consolidations where they have a large acquisition, they usually create opportunities for executives who want to leave to take a very generous exit package so they can reduce duplication of management roles. So I looked at that very generous package and said, time to start my own business. So left ADP in the end of 2010, and we started Automotive Media Partners. Now, before we launched Automotive Media Partners, I had to go build 2 digital marketing and advertising teams for my partners, one for Team Velocity Marketing and one for Tier 10 Marketing, which that took me about 15 months. I went and hired all the people, trained them, developed their operations manuals, got them up and going so they could serve car dealers with digital advertising and digital marketing products. And then it was time to focus on my brainchild, which was Automotive Media Partners. And that is the model whereby we have sites like automotivedigitalmarketing.com, dealerelite.net, and others that are connected to various social media channels, such with pages and groups and channels where primarily what we're serving up is content that educates dealers on the best practices on how they can be more successful, whether it be in parts, sales, or service departments. In our business model, where we generate our revenue is from advertising from suppliers. So we use the Google model. The Google model is, we're going to give you something of value, and on the side, we're going to have a bunch of ads. And as long as you put up with the ads, maybe pay attention to the ads a little bit, we'll be able to make this work. And that's what I'm doing to this day. And additionally, because I don't want to take my hands out of retail, I also have a handful of dealers that I have consulting retainer agreements with them, and I visit, every month I go visit, work in dealerships and help them implement a lot of the things we see on automotivedigitalmarketing.com and dealerelite.net, and make sure that it works. And I find myself doing a lot of interviewing, recruiting, working with contractors on building facilities, doing all kinds of cool stuff for car dealers.
Perfect. So one of the things I thought was really interesting about your story was that you got into internet marketing really before there was even an internet.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we could just talk about sort of those Wild West days. I remember as a kid, I had the Apple IIc, and there were people getting these, whatever was the 36 baud modems and trying to connect these bulletin boards. But you had to be pretty geeky to get on these things.
I wasn't geeky. What I was greedy. I love selling cars. I always have to this day. Nothing thrills me more or gets me more excited than closing a deal, making a deal. So making it happen, saving a customer, take that car, seeing the taillights going over the curb on their way home when they leave the dealership. So here's what was going on. In the mid 80s, this would have been 1985, President Reagan was in office, and he was doing this cruise missile project to develop cruise missiles. And it was being done by, a lot of the work was being done by General Dynamics, specifically Convair Division in San Diego. And their big Convair Division plant was across Highway 163 from my store, Kearney Mesa Volkswagen. And we would see them testing these rockets. And at night, it would just light up the sky like a Cape Canaveral launch. And I kept saying, and I remember looking at the San Diego Union Tribune, 15,000 engineers being brought to San Diego to work on the cruise missile project. And I thought to myself, they're all going to need cars. And engineers, they always got good credit. They got money to put down. And they're kind of geeky enough that we can gross the heck out of them. Okay, so I wanted that. So I remember this one engineer from General Dynamics bought a Volkswagen Vanagon from us. And I asked him, what's the best way to advertise to these engineers? He says, we have a problem there. We don't read the newspaper. We don't watch TV. We don't really listen to the radio much. And I said, well, how about billboards on the roads going to work? He says, no. He goes, what you need to do is, do you have internet access? I was like, what? Well, we have a fax. We had a fax machine. And he says, no, internet access. He goes, they just made it legal that civilians can get internet access. So the internet had been around for a while, and that's what all these military contractors were using. And he goes, well, we have this public, for the employees, a bulletin board system. They call it a BBS. So he showed, I remember when I spent $5,000 on buying a computer from some local computer store with a modem, the kind you take the phone and you put it in the suction cup.
Yeah.
So he gave me, and the way BBSs work, you had to dial in a specific number, and the computer would do the, and then you'd have a login and a password. And he showed me, he got me set up, and I was on the bulletin board. And what I saw were employees selling their various dirt bikes, surfboards, so occasional used car. So the first thing I did is I took my stock book, the old school stock book with the cardboard cards, 3x5 cards, and I just started picking out one of each model, and I would list it on this BBS. And I remember going back the next day saying, where's my ads? Well, it turns out every time somebody lists something, your ad goes down. I'm like, well, they're not going to get me. And then I'd list more cars. So then I hired a secretary who would every day, her job, this grew to where I had 75 different bulletin board systems for various defense contractors around San Diego. I had a young lady who worked for me, and every day she'd spend 2 hours logging into each of the different bulletin board and putting in our inventory and listing, here's the window sticker, and then here's our price for General Dynamics employees or for Solar Turbine employees. And we sold cars. I didn't want anybody to know what we were doing. This was my top secret. I would lock the doors of my office. I didn't want the salespeople to know. All they knew is that when somebody came in and asked for me, it was a deal. They used to call them spoonies. The salesperson would bring the customer in my office, and they'd be sitting there going, Ralph, would you like me to go pull up a vehicle? Can I get you guys some coffee? Or, they wouldn't let go of these customers because they knew it was going to be a deal. I think our closing rate on emails we got off these BBSs was around 50% in those days. 80.
Was there any blowback? I mean, it sounds like the other ads were like people selling their own surfboard.
Yes.
It wasn't commercial ads from businesses. So were some people getting annoyed with you?
Yes, there were. And so what I would usually do is I would find an employee from the company that had bought a vehicle from us, and I would make him a deal. I'd say, can I use your name to list these vehicles for sale? And I'll give you a set of, like that guy with the Vanagon, I gave him a full set of the German floor mats. I mean, it was like a $300 set of floor mats for the whole Vanagon in exchange for me let me log in as him and list our inventory for sale. Because what we were getting pushback from in those days was, hey, you're not an employee. This is for employees. So, and then there was times I would put people on spiffs where I'd say every car we sell as a result of the ads on your company's BBS will give you $50 or something like that. It actually, in those days, honestly, it's not like it is today. People were so thrilled that a dealer would pay attention to this technology. Most of what we got were engineers saying, well, I'm going to buy I wasn't even thinking about a Volkswagen, but what do you have? Do you guys sell pickup trucks? They would want to do business with us because they thought it was so cool that we were doing it by email, back and forth. And it was really very different than it is now. People didn't talk about privacy restrictions. There was no such thing as cookies. There was no spam filters. So email was 100%. Your emails weren't getting blocked. And I remember my email address was through CompuServe. CompuServe launched their charter internet ISP service in 1985. I was a charter member. I got our dealership on. And I'll tell you an interesting story. When the World Wide Web was actually created in 91, the first book I got from CompuServe, it listed the 300 websites in existence. There were 300 websites that you could go to using a browser called Mosaic. What a piece of crap that was. It was just a whole different world. Look, I'm not a geeky type, but what I am is a car salesman who I don't like to lie and I don't like to steal because I can't remember if I lie, and so I just tell the truth all the time. So anything that can make it easier to sell cars has always been very attractive to me. And what I saw from day one was using computers and connecting with people, whether at work. In the beginning, it was always at work, and then fast forward to today, you can connect to people when they have their cell phones with them all the time, even when they go to the bathroom. So to me, technology has always been a means to connect with the consumer on a more direct basis than mass media advertising.
Let's talk a bit about sort of some current opportunities. Are there any things that you see working really well for some dealers, but you see a lot of other dealers maybe not doing these things, and just some of the low-hanging fruit opportunities, and we'll try and keep it maybe just one or two things that you think dealers should be doing that a lot of dealers are not doing.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about one of my pet peeves when we talk about those areas. First and foremost, advertising in terms of having advertising that you can track. And then the other side of that equation is advertising that's specifically targeted to your customers. And there's so many variations on targeting technology. A dealer who's not using targeted ads as opposed to, bulk, visible to, I'm paying for everybody. Let's boil the ocean. It's ridiculous. You can't afford it. Nobody can. We've seen advertising expense per vehicle retail, PVR, go from, I remember when I went to NADA training, it was like $200 and change. Today it's north of $600 per vehicle sold. It's ridiculous. What every dealer should do, and a few of them are, but unfortunately there's too many that are not, is having a very, very detailed and specific programs where your advertising is designed to reach very specific customer groups with a message that's relevant to that group. I don't need to advertise my pickup trucks to people that don't buy pickup trucks. I don't need to advertise my Malibus or my Ford Focuses to people that buy pickup trucks because they're not going to buy a compact car or an intermediate car. So that sort of logic, I think, is something that it pains me when I see dealers that are doing the shotgun approaches. And it's like they throw money away when they do that.
I mean, I think it's an old school thing. I mean, you still see a lot of television ads for car dealerships, and that's kind of a shotgun approach.
Well, not necessarily. With cable TV ads, most dealers have the ability, the cable companies will let you target your TV ads to very specific groups of people, whether it be demographics, programs they're watching, times of the day, or zip codes, or places. Here's the households we're going to have this commercial go into. So again, I'm talking less about the advertising channel than the means of targeting the ads. Now, there's certain things that I think have, and I know direct mail is doing way better than it used to do, sort of, but the concept of, using fossil fuel burning vehicles to transport dead trees, I just don't see the longevity around direct mail. And I know there's going to be people out there going to be, why did you say that, Ralph? It's a personal belief on my part. I don't particularly like handling a lot of paper. I don't like having a bunch of junk mail coming to my mail. I really think that anything to do with the mail, it needs to be very specific to your existing customer base, for example, where maybe you want to buy their car back or something like that. That's appropriate, but this kind of shotgun approach to direct mail, I think, just creates a lot of extra trash going to the landfills, and it spends a lot of money. Email marketing, I think, is super important. You got to every dealer, big or small, you have to have a strategy around an ongoing email marketing campaign, and please don't use Gmail or Yahoo email, or use your CRM tool. Work with somebody like a Constant Contact or Exact Targeting, or one of these professional email marketing companies where they can make sure you're not violating spam filter triggers and you're doing things properly. Because there's a lot of laws regarding that. Text messaging, chat messaging, these are things. Every dealer, you should have live chat, staff live chat on your websites. If you don't, it's like saying, I'm not going to put my inventory up there because then they have to come to the dealership to see what I got. We saw how well that worked for those 2,000 dealers that went out of business in 2010. There's a lot of, to me, it seems like common sense that dealers sometimes avoid with the excuse of, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, we do newspaper ads because we know how to do those. We don't know how to do online ads. Well, for God's sake, hire somebody that does, or pay somebody, to come in and teach you how to do it, or go online and get some lessons and training on how to do it. To do things the wrong way because you don't know how to do the right way, that's not a solution. Learning how to do the right way is the solution.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the future. I think that's all great advice. Let's talk a bit about the future. As I said, I thought one of the things really I wanted to talk to you was just being sort of a thought leader, getting out, ahead of the curve. What are some things in the next, year, 2 years, 3 years that you see as really being growth opportunities for auto dealer marketing?
First of all, I'll just say this. Since I've been in the business now for 33 years, and to me, everything that has been coming seems very obvious, okay? So there's nothing I'm going to tell you about what's coming that people don't already know. The problem is that when dealers ignore what's so obvious. So one of the obvious is...
In 1985, though, it was not that obvious.
Yeah,
what you were doing with those bulletin boards.
It was as obvious, okay, maybe not at that point with the BBSs, although to me, if people are selling, it's like Craigslist. If you're selling stuff, who was the first dealer to put cars on Craigslist? I put cars on Craigslist the first time it launched in San Diego because it was obvious. If somebody can sell a used surfboard somewhere, I can sell a car. It's that simple. Now, as far as what's coming, I'm going to say that the biggest thing that people are ignoring, and they don't ignore it, get ahead of your competition, develop an unfair competitive advantage. Look, competitive advantage is fine, but I want the unfair competitive advantage, and that means doing what my competition doesn't do. Mobile devices. Develop a mobile strategy. Embrace the fact that most people are going to access the internet today and tomorrow and going forward on some type of mobile device or some type of tablet. I was looking for one of my many iPads, but whether it be an iPad or a general tablet device or mobile devices, having different, and it's a little different than what we've been doing. It's not quite the same as saying, well, let's take all our internet ads and send them to people's cell phones. It doesn't work that way. What I'm talking about is every dealer should have an app, and I'm going to say that every dealer should have multiple apps available. There should be an app. This idea of having a general all-purpose app for people's cell phones, I don't think that's going to fly. I think that once a customer buys a car, what they need in the app are things related to service and owner's manuals and how to get the most out of their ownership experience with the vehicle. But every dealership should have a branded app that a customer can download to their iPhone or Android device or whatever the operating system is, or the new Microsoft Windows mobile. I hear everybody keeps predicting, it never seems to happen, that Windows is going to get popular with mobile devices. But I would say mobile devices, mobile marketing, more importantly, the ways customers can access the dealership's products and services via a mobile device, make it super convenient. So, for example, I have 2 GM vehicles because I do some work for Findlay Chevrolet here in Las Vegas. So I bought a Camaro and I bought a 2014 Silverado. Both of my vehicles, from a mobile app that GM offers, I can connect to my car even when it's shut off and parked and see how much fuel's in there, how many miles are on it, where it's been, anything that the car needs, what's the tire pressure in the tires. If I'm planning a road trip, I'll check the tire pressure and know whether I have to stop and check or not. These sorts of things that make it convenient for the consumer to do business with the dealer. I think we're really, the big competitive advantage is to the dealer that makes it super easy and convenient to spend money at that dealership. In the old days, it seemed like we made it very hard to buy a car. You have to do this, do that, do this. That's coming to a close. The markets of the future are going to be won by the companies that make it so easy and convenient to do business with them that people enjoy doing business with them, that it's not something they dread or want to avoid, that it's something God, I think I'll be able to buy a car in August. Isn't that great? I'm going to have this great experience. People might laugh when I say that, but honestly, the dealerships that I've managed, talk to any of the customers, they loved coming there because we always made sure that they had a good time. We always, I like to use the hospitality approach. Marriott Corporation does phenomenal training for their employees. One of the things you'll notice if you go to a Marriott, stay at a Marriott hotel, everybody smiles. Everybody welcomes you. Everybody knows how to get any particular place. I think the dealers that use technology to make it convenient and retrain their staff to not avoid customer contact, but to seek it out. Okay, so one of the big myths out there. I love it when a consumer that has never worked in the car business says, "I'm not going to give that dealer my information. Next thing you'll know, I have 10 car salesmen call me, every other hour trying to sell me something." And I'll look at them and I say, "I wish." Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Chances are you'll never get contacted at all. So I would say that the dealers that really embrace the sort of customer friendly. Yes, we want your business. Yeah, we want you to spend money here. And here we're going to make it really convenient. For example, do away with paper coupons. Coupons should be able to be loaded on a mobile device. Let your customers bring your coupons to them on their cell phones. And you'll get more business because it's easy. I won't forget it at home. I put it on my cell phone. It's there. I look it up. Allowing your customers to provide important information, whether it's in the financing end of it or about their vehicle, through a cell phone. So, for example, a lot of these dealer apps, all the consumer has to do is scan the barcode on their VIN, the window decal under the windshield, and they can use that for ordering parts and accessories or scheduling service. They don't have to remember their VIN number. It's in their phone. These sorts of convenience, because you think about it this way, if it's that convenient for me to do business with the dealership, why would I go to Jiffy Lube? Why would I go to somebody else? If, hey, I do it right off my phone. I just push the button. And next thing you know, there's a guy from the Mercedes store here to pick up my car and take it in for service. And they leave me a loaner car. Sometimes I don't even use it. But then they bring me back my car. I'm going to get it serviced somewhere else? I don't think so. So this is the way of the future. The dealers that make it super easy for customers to do business with them.
Let's talk a bit about your current projects. You mentioned automotivedigitaltraining.com
Yes.
Earlier. Let's just maybe give us a 2-minute elevator pitch on that so people can learn more about it.
There's a company that builds an online training platform many of us are familiar with. It's used by Grant Cardone, Joe Verdi and several other very popular trainers, and it's called at any rate, this particular training platform, I have to give credit where credit is due. Sean Bradley and Peter Martin came up with this idea of getting some of the top trainers and speakers and consultants together and creating a centralized place using this particular technology, which many dealers are familiar with. So if you've ever done the Chrysler training, it uses the same platform. It's called Lightspeed. In fact, they have studios here in Vegas, so I've been working in their studios doing recordings. So what we did is we got together, and it's fee-based, and where we put some real meat and potatoes. So it starts off with a video, then there's documents and training on how to do very tactical things. It's not There's very few little theoretical stuff in there. It's very specific. Here's how you set up a Google ad campaign. Here's how you set up video marketing, using YouTube and having commercials where drive people to your videos. And here's how you set up a PDC. Here's how to train a call center. Here's the phone scripts. So you name it. If you have to train dealers on it, or dealers want to train their employees, it's available at automotivedigitaltraining.com. I have my channel in there with my material. Jim Ziegler is on there. My very dear friend and brother from a different mother, Daniel Kazmi, is in there. Peter Martin, of course. The web doc is in there. Sean Bradley, of course, is in there, and several others. And so what's kind of nice is the channels are separated by the trainers. So if you don't like Jim, but you like me, then you can look at my stuff. If you don't like me, but you like Jim Ziegler, you can look at his stuff. It's a very nominal monthly fee. Peter Martin runs the show. He runs Automotive Digital Training. He's doing a phenomenal job. Of all the projects I'm involved with, in this particular one, he makes sure I'm always aware of how many dealers have looked at my training, which sessions are the most popular, what are the requests, what are people asking for. So I go into the studio and record a session and develop and everything you have to test out to complete each section. So one thing about the Lightspeed platform, which is great, is if your employees are passing the test or failing the test. If you fail the test, you can take it over again, but you have to do the lesson again. It's a very disciplined, structured system for training dealer employees, extremely cost effective. So for the little dealer that doesn't want to send his people away to a conference or a training seminar or can't afford to pay somebody to come on site, it is the most affordable way to get the up-to-the-minute latest training materials. And I give Peter credit because all of us are involved. He makes us update our stuff all the time. He's actually kind of a pain in the ass. He's always like, Ralph, I think you need to update your social media section. All right, I'll go in there and do it.
So perfect. So what's the best way for people to keep up with you and potentially maybe even contact you? Your Twitter handle.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is I try to use I'm a big believer in keep it simple. So my Twitter is my name. I'm at Ralph Paglia. My Instagram is at Ralph Paglia. My Facebook page is facebook.com/rpaglia, because believe it or not, there's another Ralph out there. He got his first. So he lives in San Antonio, which I used to live there too. Some of the real treasure troves, I'll say, are slideshare.net. If you go to slideshare.net/Ralph Paglia, I've got hundreds of PowerPoint presentations I've used for training and conference presentations available for download. I don't protect any of the stuff. I use what's called a Creative Commons copyright, which simply means you can use my material, people. Just give me credit for it. Just make sure you put in there, source, Ralph Paglia. That's all I ask for. And then
perfect. I'll link to all this in the show notes too. So if you're listening to this and you don't have a pen handy, just go to the show notes and everything will be linked.
And then automotivedigitalmarketing.com and dealerelite.net are both treasure troves of resources and information. Then there's my name, ralphpaglia.com. Obviously I got that along with all the variations. And I would say one of the things I use social media for example, I had a comment that somebody made to me the other day, which kind of struck me. He said, whenever I see you tweet something and it says check out, I always pay attention. I was like, why? Because I know what that is. There's an automatic setting when I send something out from Automotive Digital Marketing. The automatic default is it says check out and then the title of the article and sends a link to it. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is I have a lot of tweets that are just commentary on the industry that some people just aren't interested in. But when he sees that check out, he knows that leads to an article. And the only ones I'm going to push out like that are the ones that I've read and said, this is some good stuff. This is important. This is valuable. So I would say my Twitter is great for people that follow. A lot of people, I get positive comments. I have over 10,000 Twitter followers. Love the car business. I look at everything from the standpoint of, will this help me sell more cars? That's how I see the world.
Perfect. So you've been very generous with your time. I mean, you just are a wealth of knowledge. This has been a great interview. I know I've learned a lot, so I'm sure people out there will be taking a lot of knowledge from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for contacting me. Bye-bye.
If you're currently looking for a high-quality auto dealer website, check out our sister site, motorcarsites.com. We offer high-quality auto dealer websites at a very affordable price. Dealers can typically save between $50 and $150 per month by using our service. You can upload as many cars as you like at no additional cost. We automatically can export your cars to all the major platforms like Cars.com and AutoTrader, so you don't have to manage your inventory in multiple locations. We can have your new website up and running usually in less than 24 hours. Setup is fast and easy and free. There are no long-term contracts, so you can cancel at any time. Check out motorcarsites.com to learn more. On the next episode of the Motorcar Marketing Podcast, I'm going to be talking with Mark Frost from Automotive. We're going to be talking about SEO and content marketing for auto dealers. This is a big part of the online marketing puzzle, and Mark has some real hands-on experience doing this, and he very generously offers up some great insight for car dealers. Just a quick thought on today's interview with Ralph. I love hearing stories like the one Ralph told where he describes those early days of really its pre-internet marketing. The big takeaway for me was hearing how open he was to new ideas and how open he was to outside the box ideas. As he describes it, he wasn't super geeky or technical, but he was looking for new ways to market his cars. And when he heard about the BBS system, he wasn't afraid to try something new, and it was something that he knew nothing about. I've done online marketing in a lot of different verticals for a variety of different companies, and I can tell you, if there's one so-called secret to online marketing, it's that you've got to always be trying new things. A lot of the things you're going to try, they aren't going to work for you, but that's totally fine. It doesn't matter how many times you fail. If you succeed just a few times, the winners will more than make up for the losers. There are probably opportunities out there today that no one is talking about or doing, and those can be big wins, but you've got to be constantly open to trying new things, or you're never going to find these opportunities. In some ways, this podcast is me taking my own advice. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think podcasting is a great marketing medium. There doesn't seem to be a lot of other podcasts in the automotive marketing niche, but I really don't know if this is going to be an effective way to market the motorcar marketing services, but I'm out here and I'm trying it and I'm going to see what happens. I really believe especially the smaller dealerships need to really be creative with their marketing, think outside the box and try lots of new things, and hopefully this podcast can help you in that pursuit. Anyway, that's our show. I hope you get some value out of it and it can help you grow your business. Thanks for listening.